Welcome back to Keep It Real Boxing. This is Cypher Box, and basically what I want to do with this video is I want to do a follow-up video of my video the other day in terms of where I talked about whether the offer of 12.5 million was fair to Deontay Wilder from Anthony Joshua. Okay, now a lot of you jumped on my video yesterday, leaving comments like, you know, who said it's $100 million fight? This fight doesn't generate $100 million fight. Eddie Hearn saying that there's $30 to $50 million in the pot for this fight, slating me for my opinions. Yeah, basically saying that, you know, slating me for the fact that I feel it will probably be a US pay-per-view fight. Okay, you disagreed with me, fine. I disagree with you. That's the whole point of boxing. You can debate it, and I went back and forth with some of you guys as well in the comment section. First of all, the first thing I want to get straight, all right? In my video the other day, all right, I was talking about estimated revenues or potential revenues or projected revenues. Yeah, these are the words I used in my video the other day. I never said it's guaranteed to do $100 million. I was going on estimates, projections, potential revenue. Okay? And I want to make it really clear. In this video, once again, I am going on estimates, projections. Yeah? What the fight potentially could or could not make. Make that really clear to you guys. Don't jump on there saying who's saying it's going to make 100 million, etc, etc. This is me going on projections and estimates. Let me make that really clear, because some of you guys, I get the feeling, don't really listen to what's being said in the video, or even watch the video completely right to the end. So let me repeat one more time. When I'm talking about numbers, I'm talking about projections, estimates, what the fight potentially could do or could not do. I am not giving you guaranteed numbers. No one can guarantee this fight's going to do 100 million. Just like no one can guarantee that this fight is going to do a maximum of $50 million. You can't guarantee. You can only project. The people who make these fights, who promote the fights, you know, the broadcasters, etc., can only give you estimates, projections. And that's what I'm working off here. Just to make that clear. Estimates and projections. So let's talk about these estimated numbers. We've got two different stories to this whole thing, yeah? A lot of you jumped on my video saying that projection's incorrect, the 100 million's a myth, etc. Fine. And a lot of you turned around and said that Eddie Hearn has said that this fight will potentially generate between 30 and 50 million. Okay, so we've got AJ and Eddie Hearn saying it's gonna make, according to you guys, I haven't heard it because I watched AJ's IFL interview the other day, and I don't remember hearing him say that, what he felt what the fight was gonna actually make, potentially. But you guys are telling me that Eddie Hearn, I'm going off what you're telling me, that Eddie Hearn has said that there's 30 to 50 million in the pot. That this fight is going to make between 30 and 50 million at best. No way does it do 100 million. Okay, so that's Eddie Hearn and AJ's side. And I'm going on what you, the AJ fans, are telling me. Because that's what you're telling me. A lot of you jumped on my video the other day and told me that's what you said to me. Between 30 and 50 mil at best. So you're AJ fans, you're really close to AJ and Eddie Hearn. So and you follow everything and listen to everything they say, you never miss a beat. So I'm gonna go on what you've told me, that it's 30 to 50 million. Wilder's team, that's Deontay Wilder and his team, Shelley, Finkel, Hearn, etc. They believe that this fight could potentially make up to $100 million. So that's the other side of the story. So we've got Eddie Hearn and AJ saying 30 to 50 million, according to you guys, the AJ fans, who jumped on my video the other day and who were commenting. And then we've got Deontay Wilder's side saying that they say that this fight potentially could make up to $100 million. Now remember, I didn't pick that number out of the air. That number's been floating around for quite some time, the $100 million number. It wasn't just something that I saw in an article 2 or 3 days ago. That's been thrown up there in the air for months now. Okay? But that's what Deontay Wilder's team thinks. So we've got two different stories. We've got two different estimates and projections for what this fight can do in terms of revenue. So Deontay Wilder has been offered $12.5 million. Yeah, he's been offered $12.5 million, a flat fee, take it or leave it offer, according to Shelley Finkel. They're not happy with that number, clearly. So Shelley Finkel is now saying they're going to come back with a counter offer. But they're not happy with that number because they're estimating that the fight will generate a revenue of $100 million. And even if Shelley Finkel, Team Wilder, don't believe it's going to make $100 million, that number is still out there and it's still being debated by people. And people are still talking about it. Some people are agreeing with it. Some people are disagreeing with it. I never agreed or disagreed with it. All I said that that's an estimate. And if that estimate's correct, that's what I based my last video on. Okay, so that's what I'm going to base this video on because that's the number that's been thrown out there. You know, all the big YouTube channels are talking about it. I just watched a stream with The Boxing Voice where Nesta Gibbs turned around and said, you know, I'm pretty sure he was on our show a few months ago. Eddie Hearn, he's talking about, was on our show a few months ago and mentioned something about $100 million. And Matt, who's his co-host, said, he goes, yeah, I do remember that. He goes, it may be, you know, they were a little bit hazy in terms of whether Eddie Hearn actually said that or not, but they're quite sure he did when he was on their show. And Matt said, right, so he goes, we'd have to probably go back and watch the show again. Right? So this number's come from somewhere. It's not something I've just plucked out in the air and just said, here you go, that's what it is. Right? So as this number's out there, let's talk about it. $100 million potentially is what Wilder's team think this fight will generate. And like I said, Eddie Hearn and his team, AJ, etc., disagree. They think it's going to make 30 to 50 max. So to resolve this issue, regards to the split, the pay, the purse, okay, I think that instead of giving Deontay Wilder a flat fee, offer him a percentage, like you did with Joseph Parker. You know, Eddie Hearn and AJ had no problem giving Joseph Parker a percentage split. So why not give Wilder the same? Give him a percentage split instead of a flat fee, in order to make this negotiation process easier. Now, don't get me wrong, right? This is business, yeah. So Anthony Joshua's going to go out there and lowball him. You know, Team Wilder have to come back with a counter offer. Team AJ might then turn around and counter that offer. Wilder may counter that offer. You know, they might have to go back and forth because that's what happened with Joseph Parker. They had to go back and forth with Duco Promotions, Joseph Parker's promotional team. They had to go back and forth, Eddie Hearn, with them, between the two of them, until they came up with a number that they were happy with. So, like I said, offer Wilder a percentage split like you did with Joseph Parker instead of a flat fee. So, before I carry on, let me remind you, I'm talking estimates and I'm talking projections from both teams. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to pluck a number out of the air. I'm going to pluck a percentage split number to use as an example to you guys of how much easier this would be and work out if you just offered a percentage split, and how it will probably satisfy both sides estimates. So remember what I said, we've got one team saying 30 to 50 million max, which is Eddie Hearn, AJ, and then we've got Wilder's side, which is saying $100 million. So just to satisfy both these estimates, because we don't know which one's right, we don't know which one's guaranteed, we don't know for sure, hand on heart, what this fight could potentially make or may not make. It's all projections and estimates. So just to satisfy both sides and their estimates, use a percentage split. So the percentage split example that I'm going to use is 70-30. That's 70% to Anthony Joshua and 30% to Deontay Wilder. Now, before I carry on, AJ fans, don't get mad because of the percentage I just threw out there. I'm just using it as an example. And Deontay Wilder fans, don't get mad because the number that I'm using for Deontay Wilder, 30%, is less than what Joseph Parker made, who made 33%. Remember, this is an example I'm giving you of how a percentage split would probably work out better for both teams. So what I'm going to do now is let's start looking at the fight and look at every possible outcome in terms of potential revenue. Remember, not guaranteed revenue, potential revenue, estimates. Starting at the lowest possible number that this fight could probably make, which is 20 million, for example. And I'm going to work my way up to $100 million and talk about what that 70-30 split could potentially look like. For starting at 20 million, working my way up to 100 million. What does that 70-30 split look like for each figure I'm going to give you of this potential revenue estimates that both sides have? Okay, so here we go. Let's start with 20 million. If the fight, only made 20 million in revenue, and we use the percentage split of 70-30, Deontay Wilder's 30% would be 6 million of that. Whereas AJ's 70% of that 20 million would be 14 million. Okay, so let's say the fight makes only 30 million. That means Deontay Wilder's 30% would look like $9 million. And AJ's 70% would be $21 million. So let's say the fight now makes $40 million. Deontay Wilder's 30% would look like $12 million. And Anthony Joshua's 70% would look like $28 million. So let's look at it this way now. Let's say the fight makes $50 million, which is what team Eddie Hearn and AJ are saying is the maximum amount they expect this fight to generate. $50 million. So if the fight makes $50 million, what will the splits look like? Well, Deontay Wilder's split would look like $15 million and AJ's split would be $35 million using a 70-30 split, as I said. Moving on to $60 million. If the fight was to generate $60 million in revenue, Deontay Wilder's 30% would look like $18 million and Anthony Joshua's would look like $42 million. Let's talk $70 million. So say the fight generates $70 million. Deontay Wilder's 30% would look like $21 million. Anthony Joshua's 70% would look like $49 million. Next figure, $80 million. So let's say the fight makes $80 million. Deontay Wilder's 30% would look like $24 million. And Anthony Joshua's 70% would look like $56 million. $90 million. Let's say the fight makes $90 million in revenue. Deontay Wilder's 30% would look like $27 million. Anthony Joshua's 70% would look like $63 million. And let's talk about the last number, $100 million, which is what Deontay Wilder's team believe this fight could potentially make in revenue. So what does that 70-30 split that I'm talking about, the example of 70-30 that I'm using, looks like for both fighters? Well, that's obvious. Deontay Wilder's 30% would be 30 million. And AJ's 70% would be 70 million. So I've just given you a breakdown of this example of 70-30 split over, $100 million in 10 million increments, right? So every possibility of what this fight could generate, ranging from 20 million to 100 million, and what the percentage split would look like for both fighters. I just feel, end of the day, I just want this fight to get done. This fight shouldn't be this difficult to negotiate. It really shouldn't. I think everyone would agree with that. I hope everyone agrees with that anyway. But this fight shouldn't be that difficult to negotiate. And clearly, for me, anyway, in my opinion, it seems like it's easier if they just gave Deontay Wilder a percentage split rather than a flat fee of $12.5 million. The percentage split makes more sense. I mean, they did it for Joseph Parker, so why not do it for Deontay Wilder? I don't understand that. It seems like the flat fee is just going to make it even more difficult to make the fight. Now let's talk about Joseph Parker and Anthony Joshua's fight. Now that fight was expected to make 24 million, which means according to their split percentages of 67 and 33%, Joshua should have made he would have roughly made about 16 million for the fight, and Parker would have made roughly about 8 million if that expected revenue of 24 million was achieved. Now what you're going to see on the screen right now is a portion of an online article by The Sun regarding Eddie Hearn talking over Twitter to an individual regarding what Parker made for his fight against AJ. And basically this person on Twitter claimed that Joseph Parker made 13 million approximately for his fight against Anthony Joshua. And Eddie Hearn, he kind of like trashed the guy and said, no, that's not right. Where did you get that number from? And I'm actually going to show you a portion of the tweets between the two individuals as well, between Eddie Hearn and this individual as well. So the individual that Eddie Hearn was talking to was this editing king. And he basically says to him, where on earth do you get that Parker purse from? And on top, he then sends another reply to him, cut in half, and it's still too much. Which means Joseph Parker, I would guess, okay, I can only assume, alright, but from those tweets, I would assume that Joseph Parker didn't make anywhere near the 8 million he was probably expecting he would make. Alright, because the fight obviously didn't hit the expected 24 million revenue number. Yeah, so like I said, they were expecting that fight between AJ and Parker to generate 24 million, and Joseph Parker would have got 33% of that. So I'm guessing that number of 24 million never got hit. They never achieved it, which means, technically speaking, from what Eddie Hearn says there, he says take that number 13 million, cut it in half, which gives you 6.5 million. Yeah. And it's still too much, which means Joseph Parker potentially walked away with less than 6.5 million. That's what the article's saying. And you're probably wondering, why am I bringing this up for? Well, the reason I'm bringing this up for is because that's what's good about the whole percentage split idea. Put it this way, with Deontay, that's what makes this percentage split a good idea. Okay, because you're getting a percentage split based on what the overall fight ends up earning. So if the fight, for example, like I just showed you, If the fight didn't achieve 24 million like they were expecting it to between AJ and Parker, that means Joseph Parker still gets his 33%, but he's going to get 33% of whatever was generated then, if that makes sense. And the same applies to Wilder. That's why I ran you through all those potential revenue numbers and what the percentage split would be if you offered 70-30, for example. So if the fight did really poor between Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua, and it did nothing more than 20 million, that means Wilder walks away with 6 million of that. That's still his biggest career payday right there. Anthony Joshua gets 14 million. Okay. And at the same time, Deontay Wilder can't complain. Because he says he could turn around, you could say, yeah, I accepted a 30% because I thought the 30% was a good number. I thought the fight would have done 100 million, but it didn't. It only did 20 million. And I guess that's my 30%. And even Eddie Hearn could turn and say, well, that's what you wanted. You wanted 30%. I told you the fight wouldn't do more than 50 at best, and it's only done 20. So here's your check, $6 million. Thank you very much, Deontay Wilder. See you next time. And of course, AJ still makes his money that he usually makes between 15 million to 20 million. Yeah, because that's his range at the moment, right? So between 15 to 20 million. So AJ's still getting 14 million if the fight only did 20 million. So he's not going to hurt from it. He's actually going to get exactly what he always gets, near enough. But let's say this fight does do $100 million, like Wilder's team think it may do. Yeah, that's what they're estimating, this estimated $100 million. Right? Let's use the 70-30 split that I'm using as an example in regards to this $100 million. If they hit that $100 million, that means Deontay Wilder gets 30 million and AJ gets a whopping 70 million out of it. Right? Both fighters benefit from it massively, and AJ makes a killing. He still makes a shitload of more money than Deontay Wilder does. And that way, Deontay Wilder also doesn't feel like he's been cheated. Like if he takes 12.5 million and say he takes this flat fee of 12.5 million, right? And the fight, let's say the fight does make $100 million. I'm not saying it will, like I said before, I'm not guaranteeing it. This is what Team Wilder think, that this fight is potentially going to make $100 million, right? So let's say it does make this $100 million. And all Deontay Wilder signs up for it is $12.5 million, a flat fee of $12.5 million. He's going to feel like he's been cheated out of, 30 million. If we were to use my example of a 70-30 split, right? He's going to feel like he was cheated. And then that makes negotiations and business for a rematch even more difficult, because now you've got two sides that aren't trusting each other. Now, leading into my next point, which a lot of you slated me for in my last video, where I believe this could be a US pay-per-view. A lot of you disagreed with me. You said Wilder's not big enough, he's not popular enough, etc, etc, etc. The same stuff I always hear from you guys, from you AJ fans especially, yeah? Okay, let's say you're right and I'm wrong, and I could be wrong. Don't get me wrong, I could be wrong. I think I'm right. I think it will be pushed as a US pay-per-view, but then let's say I'm wrong. I could be wrong, alright? And you guys could be right out there who made your comments. Okay? If that means that this fight doesn't make it as a pay-per-view fight out in the US, that means the money potentially isn't going to be that big in terms of $100 million. Because to hit that sort of $100 million mark, they will probably have to sell it as a pay-per-view. So if they don't sell it as a US pay-per-view, the idea of using a percentage split makes sense, because it covers all possible outcomes in terms of revenue. Whether it be 20 million, 30 million, 40 million, 50 million, all the way up to 100 million. Each fighter benefits and still makes money. I've just gone through the numbers with you. So whether it hits 100 million or doesn't hit 100 million, I think everyone, you could pretty much say everyone will be satisfied with the percentage split, because it covers all possible and potential outcomes in terms of the revenue of the fight. I mean, I'm not going to talk about any more about the money now. I'm not going to discuss, pay-per-view and pay-per-view earnings and retail and merchandising. I'm just going to talk about this split of these numbers that we've thrown out there. So we've got, like I said, I've covered off Eddie Hearn's projections of 30 to 50 million max this fight makes, and Deontay Wilder's team's expectations and their estimate that they believe this fight makes $100 million. So, I've just shown to you guys that, you know what, a percentage split makes more sense because it covers everything for everyone, right? And everyone still makes enough money to keep them happy, no matter how much the fight generates in revenue, whether it be from 20 million or 100 million or 50 million, 60 million, 30 million, 40 million, doesn't matter. Percentage splits works better. And for those of you who are going to turn around and say to me, no, you're all wrong, the pot is 30 to 50 million, that's what AJ and Eddie Hearn are using right now, they've already got a pot of 30 and 50 to 50 million or whatever it is, and that's what they're paying Deontay Wilder this upfront fee, flat fee, out of right now. And if you are right with what you're saying, that there is currently right now, Eddie Hearn has somewhere between 30 and 50 million dollars as a pot to split between the fighters right now. So that means Deontay Wilder is going to get 12.5 million and AJ gets the rest of that 50 million pot. Okay, right here and now, if you're saying that, that means that this fight must be potentially worth $100 million, because that 50 million is a cost to Matchroom Boxing. And as a business, Matchroom Boxing will need to recoup that 50 million then. And then not only that, on top of that 50 million they need to recoup as a business, they would have to make an additional 50 million on top of that because they want to make a profit, right? Otherwise, they're not making any money. So before you jump on here and say, oh no, Deontay Wilder's money is coming out of a pot that Eddie Hearn already has, which ranges between 30 and 50 million, think about what I just said before you make a comment. That's all I'm going to say to you. Anyway, I think I've done enough in terms of talking about the money. I don't think I'm going to talk any more about the money. You can jump on and leave comments if you want. I doubt I'll be reading them because I had enough the other day, to be honest with you. I just couldn't bother. Some of the comments that I was reading, and some of them were even personal comments, which I never understand. Keep it to the subject at hand. Yeah. Instead of trying to make personal comments towards the person, on the other end making the video, which would be me in this case. Do you know what I mean? I never understand that. I always find that quite pathetic. But anyway, so let's talk about Anthony Joshua's IFL interview that went up yesterday. Now I know Eddie Hearn's done an interview today. I think it was. I don't know, but it's gone up. IFL have put it up today. I haven't had a chance to watch that video just yet. I'm actually going to finish this video off that I'm making and then go and watch that video, and then I might do another video on what Eddie Hearn says in his interview. But let's talk about AJ's IFL interview. But before I go into that, I just want to give a shout out to Anthony Joshua. Yeah, big shout out to the big man, because when Kugan Cassius interviewed him, he was at a charity event raising awareness for the knife crime issue that we have here in the UK. So those of you who aren't from the UK, we have a real problem here in the streets of the UK where we have a high number of knife crimes, and especially among youngsters and young kids, and they're losing their lives on the street over stupidity, really, let's be honest. And it's starting to get out of control a little bit, and Anthony Joshua was at a charity event where he was basically giving his support to rid the streets of our knife crime, yeah, and help support bring that number down and raise awareness about it as well. So shout out to Anthony Joshua, really good cause, I think. And I like that about AJ, he does do a lot of that sort of stuff, so big shout out and salute to the big man for that. So let's talk about this IFL interview. And one of the first questions Kugan Cassius put to Anthony Joshua was about the contract itself that he sent out to Wilder, the offer. And he asked him, whether it was a flat fee, etc. And then he said to him, can you not say about that? So Anthony Joshua said, I'd rather not, because it's not professional. Alright, okay, fine. So we didn't get any information out of Anthony Joshua regarding that contract. Would have probably helped, to be honest with you, because it would have cleared up a lot of this speculation that we're all having and all making as to what's going on, and kind of maybe rebuttal what Shelley Finkel has turned around and said regarding to the offer that was made. But he chose not to. I just think if he had said it, he didn't have to give a full detail, but given an overview of what the contract looked like. Do you know what I mean? And I have downloaded the interview, the full interview that was put up yesterday, because he spoke about, obviously, initially starting with the knife crime stuff, and then he was talking about Deontay Wilder, and then he was talking about Tyson Fury, and then he finished with Deontay Wilder again. If you look now, IFL TV have taken that interview down. They've edited it and just put up the bits where he's talking about Deontay Wilder. So it's gone from a 20-minute video to a 10-minute video now, just to let you know, or 10 or 11-minute video. But he also stated, AJ, in that interview, that the young fighters would take what I'm offering or fight for free, or even fight for free, because they see the opportunity there. You know, they see the glory, and they wouldn't care about the money. Okay, fair point. He's right there, because most of those young fighters, probably with the young up and coming fighters, would probably take that opportunity that he's giving, alright? Or the offer he's giving to Deontay Wilder. But Deontay Wilder's not a young up and coming fighter. Deontay Wilder is the WBC heavyweight champion of the world. He is established himself as a champion, as a world champion. Whether you agree, whether you want to throw all that bum squad and all that sort of stuff that you all talk about, he's only fought bums, doesn't matter. He is still recognised as a WBC champion of the world. He's not a young fighter. So to compare him to young up and coming fighters, hungry fighters, you know, it's incorrect in my opinion. He also said that he's looking forward to Shelley Finkel's counter offer, because Shelley Finkel said he's going to make a counter offer, and he's saying that this offer should have been made 6 or 7 months ago. Well, not be funny, they did make offers. And remember, Shelley Finkel and Eddie Hearn were on the Boxing Voice last year with Deontay Wilder, and remember Tyson Fury jumped on and everything like that. So they discussed a little bit over there to have a meet and discuss the details of this potential fight. You know, Eddie Hearn was trying to make a fight with Wilder and Dillian Whyte. Shelley Finkel turned around and said, well, throw in Anthony Joshua's name onto the contract and we'll happily fight Dillian Whyte. Okay? And turned around and, Eddie Hearn turned around and said, no, they're two separate fights. We don't put them in one contract. And that part broke down. Deontay Wilder's thrown out there, I'll take 90, you take 10 if you promise to take the same in return. These guys have turned around, Eddie Hearn and AJ has turned around and said in interviews on YouTube, saying that, yeah, we can do that offer, fine. They never did. Right, they still haven't. Look at the offer they've made now. Yeah, Dillian Whyte, again, they threw Dillian Whyte out there again. And this time they were saying, yeah, we can put AJ's name onto it. That's fine, we can do that this time. I remember he did that in an IFL win. I put this all in other videos that I've done. So if you're wondering why I'm not putting the information or the evidence here, it's because I've already done it. Alright, and I've already proved these things. But Eddie Hearn says, yeah, we can do that deal now. We can have Dillian Whyte versus Deontay Wilder and we'll have AJ's name attached to it as well. And that, they never ever made an offer there. Deontay Wilder also threw 60-40 out there. Eddie Hearn kept saying in Sky Sports interviews, IFL interviews, we're getting closer. But where was the counter offer? He said, alright, 60-40. Shouldn't you have rang him back and said, hey, no, that's too much. We're not going to give you 40%. We're going to give you 25%. Or whatever it worked out to. Whatever he saw fit. But at least give a counter offer. You never even gave a counter offer. So I don't understand what AJ's on about when he says this should have happened 6 or 7 months ago, because it has been happening. Whether Eddie Hearn's been telling him that, it's another thing altogether. Anthony Joshua also referred something else regarding 60-40. Yeah, because Cassius asked him about, he's wanting this 60-40 split. And he goes, well, then that's 50-50, isn't it? And he said, he goes, and Coogan was about to say something. He goes, oh, hold on, listen. He says, I take 60% and I give you 40%. And in the rematch, you take 60% and I'll take 40%. That's 50-50 across 2 fights, isn't it? Do you actually listen to what people are telling you? Referring to Coogan Cassius when he said he had an interview with Deontay Wilder over the phone. So basically, AJ's saying that if he takes 60 in this fight and he gives Deontay Wilder 40%, in the return fight, Wilder wants 60 and he gets 40%. Should he lose, I'm guessing. And he says that balances itself out in terms of percentages, so that's a 50-50 fight. Don't agree with that, and I'll tell you why I don't agree with that. Yeah, in terms of the percentages, it's a 50-50 fight, it balances itself out, but in terms of revenue splits, it doesn't. So let's say, for example, the first fight makes $100 million. Yeah? That means AJ will get $60 million. Yeah? And Deontay Wilder will get $40 million, right? And let's say AJ loses that fight. And then he gets reversed. And in the rematch, Deontay Wilder gets 60% and AJ gets 40%. And let's say the rematch doesn't make what the first fight made, which is potentially this example I'm giving you of $100 million. Yeah? Let's say the rematch doesn't make that $100 million like the first fight did. Let's say the rematch only made $50 million. Yeah? That means Deontay Wilder will only get $30 million out of that 50, because 60% of $50 million is $30 million, and AJ would get $20 million because 40% of 50 is $20 million. So again, that doesn't make sense. Saying that I'll take 60-40 in the first fight and you take 60-40 in the second fight makes it an even 50-50 across the 2 fights doesn't make sense. From a percentage point of view it might do, but from a cash value it doesn't. So again, what AJ said there didn't make sense. He also keeps referring to saying that, oh, Shelley Finkel will probably answer back over social media because they don't do it professionally over, through emails and stuff like that. I've never seen Shelley Finkel put a tweet or an Instagram post or a comment on Facebook regarding this potential fight between Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder. He's done it through articles when he's talking to journalists, or if he's doing it amongst a group of journalists at a press conference or something like that, yes, but he's never done it over social media, so I don't know why he keeps saying that for. And to be fair, neither has really, maybe Deontay Wilder has, that's for sure. He has been talking about money and percentages in certain videos and stuff like that. But Shelley Finkel hasn't, so I don't understand why he keeps referring to that. That just doesn't make sense to me as well. He also went on to say that he felt Jarrell Miller would take the fight in a heartbeat. He said, I don't rate Miller, but I respect that. He knows the rewards and he doesn't care about the risk. Well, of course he'll take the fight in a heartbeat. Jarrell Miller is still establishing himself in the heavyweight division. He's still building himself up to a point where he can have a shot at a title, right? So he's not on the same level as Deontay Wilder. Sorry, he's not. Deontay Wilder, like I said before, is the WBC champion of the world. Jarrell Miller isn't. Jarrell Miller is still fighting guys and trying to work his way up the rankings and stuff like that, or work himself into positions, yeah, within the rankings. They're at completely different stages of their career. So comparing Jarrell Miller's hunger with Deontay Wilder's completely different. Deontay Wilder's a champion. That's why he's making the demands that he is. Jarrell Miller isn't a champion. He'll take whatever you offer him. But if Jarrell Miller was in Deontay Wilder's shoes, I guarantee you he'd be doing the same thing as Deontay Wilder. Simple as that. So I don't necessarily agree with what Anthony Joshua says there. And remember, these are just my opinions, so don't jump on here trying to attack me. I just don't agree with what he's saying. He also stated that deals have expiry dates. So I'm guessing, he's going to give Team Wilder a week or two and then move on, which I understand. Got nothing against that. And he said, my career isn't Wilder. Yeah, basically, that's not my career. It doesn't end with Wilder or anything like that. And he also turned around and said, my career doesn't end at the Undisputed Championship of the world. Referring to that, he doesn't need that. His career doesn't end that. He can go on and carry on doing what he wants to do. So, but 1 minute you're saying that, the Undisputed Championship of the world is important to you and it's the goal you've set out for yourself, but then on the other side saying you don't need the Undisputed Championship of the world as well, which I disagree. I think I've said this before, as a boxing fan, I've said it in my videos so many times, as a boxing fan, I believe we should be seeing undisputed champions in every single weight division. I don't care about pound for pound, I care about there being one champion in every division. We have so many boxing organisations. We've got 4 major sanctioning boxing organisations, yeah? WBO, WBA, IBF and the WBC. None of these guys are ever going to say, let's all come together and form one belt and one boxing organisation, because they're all profit-making companies. So the best we can hope for is undisputed champions. And so I disagree with Anthony Joshua there as well. I think it means a lot to him. And I think it would bother him if he didn't pick up that Undisputed Championship of the world. I want to see him with that Undisputed Championship of the world, for crying out loud. I said that to someone else in the comment section the other day. Don't you think I want to see Anthony Joshua stand there as the Undisputed Champion of the world with all the belts? Of course I do. So I don't think he really means what he said there. I don't think he does it. I think he's just trying to downplay it, to be honest with you. He was even talking about, I'm guessing he was on about, like, in the sense of that if the fight with Wilder doesn't happen and he doesn't get Undisputed Championship, etc., there's other things in the future, it doesn't end there for him, which is true. Yeah, he was saying that, there's up and coming heavyweights, look at Daniel Dubois, for example. He didn't say that, I'm giving that example. He also talked about Povetkin, and he said Povetkin would come to fight me for free because they want what I have. I don't agree with Povetkin being a top contender that he is, and he is a bit of a veteran now in the heavyweight division. The man's fought Vladimir Klitschko. I doubt very much he's going to come and fight you for free. Do you get what I'm trying to say? So again, just some of the stuff AJ was saying, I was just like, doesn't make sense. Like, why are you throwing this stuff out there anyway? If you're that confident in yourself and stuff like that, which I would assume he is, why would you feel the need to justify yourself? If you say you're in a position to do whatever you want, then you shouldn't feel like you need to justify yourself to people, because that's what it feels like he's doing to me. He's trying to justify things, and it doesn't make sense to me. It was a weird interview, I just thought it was. I think he's just trying to justify things in the sense that should the fight with Deontay Wilder not happen, and should he never ever pick up the Undisputed Championship in the world, he's trying to justify his career already, and for the reasons why the fight never happened. Except, do you know what I mean? It just seems, like I said, to me it felt strange, that's all. He also talked about how boxing needs entertainment, and he said entertainment sells as well. And he said the fighters that are hungry or are pure in terms of the up and coming fighters, etc., and stuff like that, they may need to add a bit of characteristics to their game to sell themselves, because we need entertainment in boxing. Okay, in regards to what he said there, you can't have it both ways then. You can't have a dig at Deontay Wilder and say he's full of talk, he talks a lot of shit, he should just shut up. No, you can't step in the ring with me, I don't want that kind of hype, because that was entertainment. That's what, if you're talking entertainment, that's what, for me, a boxing fan, that's entertainment. I've told you countless numbers of times on my video, if you watch my videos enough, that I always say, I don't like all this shaking hands and, he's a great fighter and all that sort of stuff. That can all happen after the final bell of the fight. You can shake each other's hand, embrace each other and say, great fight, mate, etc. But in the build-up, I want to see fighters in each other's faces, trash talking each other. I don't want it to be personal where you're talking about each other's families and stuff like that. Aim it at one another as athletes, as boxers. talk about each other's careers or whatever it is, take shots at each other. But one minute AJ he doesn't like that, he's like, oh, there's no need to conduct yourself like that. And then the next minute he's saying, oh, we need entertainment and we need characteristics. These fighters need characteristics in order to entertain. So, he says, I do my talking in the ring. I don't talk a lot, but there has been moments where AJ's talked himself, where he's taken the mick out of Deontay Wilder, and there's nothing wrong with that. Before anyone jumps up there, there's nothing wrong with that. I actually like it when AJ does that. I like it when he takes the mick out of Deontay Wilder, because you know what? He's giving as good as he gets, and it's entertaining. So, I don't know, he kind of contradicts himself there in my opinion, because he's saying one minute, we need to be professionals, we need to be ambassadors of the sport, and then the next minute he's saying you need to be entertaining. In order to be entertaining, you need to do trash talking. Because no one wants to stand there listening to you like Vladimir Klitschko. I remember the build-up to Anthony Joshua. I'm glad the fight between AJ and Klitschko was so entertaining, because I would have been seriously disappointed, because the build-up was so boring. It's one of the most boringest build-ups I've ever come across. That behind the gloves, or was it called the gloves are off, between Klitschko and Anthony Joshua, I switched it off halfway because of the way they were talking. I was like, are you two not like? It wasn't entertainment to me. I didn't find it interesting. So you guys can say what you want. I'm just talking from my point of view as a boxing fan, and I'm sure there's a lot of boxing fans who think like I do. Some may not, but a lot would. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to play you a quick an audio clip of Anthony Joshua with Sky Sports. He was talking to Adam Smith of Sky Sports. And I'm just going to play the audio clip, for you, and then once it's finished, I'll give you my take on it. All right?
Mix a bit of brains, mix a bit of brawn, got the full package, and we're just ready to take on anyone who's willing to step up.
Anyone who's willing to step up. All the talk this week of Deontay Wilder. What's the latest from your point of view? An offer's gone in. Yeah, so he's been calling me out, no offer. We offered him a lot of money, 10 times the amount he's earning. So listen, I heard that there's $100 million on the table and he wants a 60-40 split. So I say this, offer me $60 million straight up and you take the rest of the gate. If there's $100 million and I take 60%, they should offer me $60 million and I'll take that fight of a heartbeat. But you have to be realistic, because talking about it isn't always realistic. We looked at the stats, the figures, and we realised that straight up offer is a lot of dough. But then they're saying, no, they're quadrupling the amount that's on the table, saying that it's going to generate $100 million. That's a cheap offer. So we said, okay, cool. If it is a $100 million fight and they're happy with taking 60-40, give me 50. I'll take 50-50. Give me $50 million up front, and I swear I'll take that fight tomorrow. But they're not making no offers like that, but they're talking about it. So it's not real. So as I said, we offered him a lucrative deal, and we're just waiting to hear if he's serious or not. But they like to jump on social media than rather emailing us back in a professional manner. Do you think it will happen, and do you think it will happen next?
It has to happen. I think there's not really been many fights in the heavyweight division in history that haven't happened when you're talking about championship level. So in terms of history, I think that this fight has to happen, because it wouldn't be great for this era of boxing if it doesn't happen.
So finally, if you've got a message to Deontay right now, what is it?
Sign the contract, bad boy. That's what they say. Mike Tyson told them, sign the contract. We're telling them, sign the contract. Like, as I said, I keep it simple. They want to talk, nothing's happening. We throw up a lot of money, we do the facts and the figures. He earns £10, we give him £300. They tell us £100,000 on the table. So we say, give us half of that then, up front, if that's what's on the table. But they can't generate that. So we're trying to look at our market and say, this is what we can generate, and we're willing to give you a hefty proportion of it. But they're greedy. So I don't know if he wants to sell the belt. I don't know if he wants to fight or not. I don't understand where they're coming from, but nevertheless, there's many heavyweights out there that are serious, and I'm one of them. So I'll continue fighting and staying in my own lane.
And this is why I say a percentage split works better than a flat fee. You don't get any of this, we think it's going to make 100 million, and no, it's not. It's only going to make 40 million. We worked it out already. This settles it. And I've already proven, I've already given you that information in terms of how that works in terms of percentages, right? From 20 million to 100 million, yeah? basically a percentage split will stop all this he said, she said business that's going on between the two camps, right? It just, you know, it'll get the fight done and made quicker, for crying out loud. He also said that what they had offered Deontay Wilder was 10 times his highest payday. So then shouldn't your offer been 21 million? Because from what I understand, Deontay Wilder's highest payday is 2.1 million, and 2.1 million times by 10 is 21 million, right? And he keeps talking about in his interviews this whole thing about doing things professionally, being a professional, doing it in a professional manner. Then I'm going to say one thing, yeah? What was professional about Eddie Hearn publicly calling Finkel Shirley Wrinkle? Alright, don't get me wrong, I found it funny. Yeah, as much as so many of you out there would have, yeah, you all would have found that funny, yeah, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, if you're you know, preaching that you should be a professional, yeah, then you should be a professional at all times in everything you do and everything you handle. Yeah, you shouldn't give in to trash talking, you shouldn't give in to any sort of childish name calling or any sort of that sort of stuff. So again, look at your own promoter. Is your own promoter being, you know, professional when he refers to the opposition's promoter as Shirley Wrinkle, and he does it live on Sky Sports interviews and IFL interviews? I mean, do you know what I mean? I don't get it. You know, it's like double standards, man. One minute you're saying, yeah, we need to be professional about this and we need to handle things in a professional manner. You know, I've never heard Shelley Finkel, you know, name calling or making up childish name and nicknames for Eddie Hearn. You know, so practice what you preach. If you want to be professional about it, be professional about it. But be professional all the way. What fighters say between one another is a different thing, because that's fighters. Yeah, they're gonna trash talk and say, yeah, I'm gonna knock you out and all that sort of stuff. That's different. That's fight talk. But the promoters shouldn't get into it and start name calling and doing things like that. You know, just, you know, stop talking about this whole professionalism thing. I don't, you know, you end up making yourself look silly, in my opinion, because, you know, one minute you're being professional, then the next minute, you know, your team's, you know, being childish in their comments about the opposition team. You know, and on top of that, you're critical of Deontay Wilder, saying that, and his team, that they're not professional. And Deontay Wilder, he's trash talking and talks a lot of shit and he shouldn't talk. But then on the flip side, you're doing it yourself as well. But then at the same time saying you need to be professional. So exactly what I said, double standards, you know. Either practice what you preach or you should shut up yourself, really. And let's talk about now this, him turning around and saying that, you know, give me 60 million. If you think the fight's worth 100 million, give me $60 million up front. Or, you know what, actually, I'll take 10 off that. Give me $50 million up front. And I'll take that and you can keep the rest and we can make this fight. One, even if Deontay Wilder's team was able to do that, that means the fight would have to happen in America, because they would have to get investments from Las Vegas to be able to do that. Two, no company ever gives you an upfront payment of $50 million. They might be able to do what they've done, which is like the $12.5 million or $10 million, but they're not going to give you $50 million. Because like I said in the early part of the video, there's no guarantee that the fight's going to generate that. Yeah? There's no guarantee that it's going to generate that. They're going off estimates, projections of what they think this fight could potentially make. And that's why I said at the beginning of the video and throughout this video that a percentage split makes sense. It cuts out all this bullshit. Yeah, you're not going to get 50 million up front. Steven Espinosa of Showtime Sports is not going to give you 50 million up front. Las Vegas casinos aren't even going to give you 50 mil up front. So I think it was, you know, I don't see the point of making that comment. Yeah, Deontay Wilder's not asking for, you know, 50 million up front. He's asking for a percentage figure, and the percentage figure he's asking for is 40%. Now I said I've talked about 70-30%, and I've given you examples right from the beginning of the video of how that 70-30% breaks down. That 30%, you know, if you use 30%, 70-30% split, yeah, it satisfies everyone on all levels in terms of revenue, potential revenue that could be made, whether it be 20 million, 30 million, 40 million, 50 million, 60 million, 70, 80, 90 to 100. Everyone is happy in terms of the split and the money they're making. They're talking about potential revenue, estimated revenue. An estimate doesn't mean a guarantee, it's a projection. Okay, that's all I've got to say about Anthony Joshua's comments and interviews. That's all I've definitely got to say about the money side of things. I think I've said enough now. I don't think I'm going to talk any more about the money going forward. I can't be bothered with it anymore. I just want to see the fight made. Simple as that. I really do. That's all that matters. The fight gets made. And like I said, a percentage split just sorts all the problems out. But people don't want to agree with that. People want to make issues and drama out of it. People want to put roadblocks up. People want to block this fight from happening. You know what? As boxing fans, you shouldn't even. You should be looking at what I said and think, actually, you know what makes sense? Why don't they just do that and make the fight already? Because as boxing fans, I've said this before. We don't make any money out of this. None of us do. We're the one who giving money. We're the ones going to pay for it here in the UK anyway. We're going to be paying for the pay-per-view. We're paying for it because we're the one who's giving up our hard-earned money to watch the fight and pay so we can watch the fight. Or if you're going to the fight that night, you know, live, and you're going to be ringside for it, you're paying for it. You know, like I said, you know, some of you disagree that it's going to be a pay-per-view out in America, but I think it probably will be a pay-per-view in America. And if it is, again, the Americans fan base are paying for it. You know, we're not making any money out of this. So, like I said, this doesn't have to be so difficult. This fight could be made easily. And I've given a great example as to how this fight can be made easily. But people are going to jump on the comment section. I know they are. They're going to turn around and say, no, this, that, like they did the other day. The other day when I did my other video on this subject, people jumped on there and started making comments and roadblocks. He's a bum. He hasn't fought anyone. Yada, yada, yada. Who cares? We want to see the fight. And if this is what it takes to make the fight, like a 70-30 split or a 65-35 split to keep both sides happy and everyone gets what they want out of it, and we see the fight and we see a great fight and then potentially a rematch, who cares? As boxing fans, we win. So you can slate me as much as you want, I don't care. Like I've said before, I don't care. But end of the day, right, I don't understand why people are putting such roadblocks up for. I don't get it. I still don't understand it now. Whether you're an AJ fan or a Wilder fan, yeah, I don't care. Think what's best for the sport, yeah, and this fight is the best fight out there at the moment. It's the biggest fight out there at the moment. We haven't had something like this at heavyweight in a long time. Between two young, in prime fighters. Anyway, that's all I've got to say to you guys on this one. As always, like, share and subscribe. Until next time, this is Cypherbox reminding you to keep it real.